Do you prefer to take a logical route or a factual research-based route, or would you prefer to do both, and why?
I think that you definitely need to take a facts-based approach if you're trying to seek out the truth. But if the question is when I'm countering claims in a video, I take a very facts-based research. Here are my citations, and I always say in every video, please don't take my word for it. Go to the links in the description of my video, see where I got this from, and assess for yourself. Fact check me. I can be wrong. I have my own biases. So on a scripted video, that's what I do consistently. When I'm engaging in a conversation with somebody, I'm more interested in why they think the way they do than I am in debunking what they're saying. I don't engage in debates really in the fashion that you would anticipate seeing these sort of online debates going. I will counter what they say, but the way I counter what somebody says is to explain to them why I think differently rather than explain to them why I think they're wrong. Because you'll immediately shut somebody down if you say, well, you're wrong, here's why. That is somebody's going to be like, hey, I'm not wrong.
You make them put up the defensive barrier.
Exactly, they'll shut down. So what my presentation style, I guess you would say, or communication strategy would be instead to say, okay, so let me figure out where you got there. Here's how I got somewhere differently. Can we both assess our paths together and see where maybe I'm wrong? Let's see where one of us may have gone astray, and I'll start asking some more probing questions to try to delve further into how they got there, so that they'll do more critical analysis of their thought process. So it's not about countering. Like here's the research that shows that you're dumb and I'm smart. I've got research that says you're an idiot. That's not going to convince anybody who's and another really important thing to consider is that when I'm talking to that person, there's especially if there are people in the public sphere, they're invested in continuing to think the way they do a lot of the time. So the conversation I'm having with them is not just me showing respect and understanding of them, it's me showing respect and understanding to the people that think like them, that watch them, that follow them, that they influence, that may have come to watch them have a conversation. I want them to have what I say resonate. So that because people don't think about that. When you're in a conversation with a person, you're thinking about the person that you're conversing with. In the sphere where we exist, what's really, really important is I'm not just talking to the person I'm existing with, I'm talking to someone I may never, ever hear from, who may never enter a room like this, who may never leave a comment, who may never follow me on Twitter, that's sitting in a room somewhere questioning their ideas, and something I said in a conversation with somebody who's like them made them go, okay, hey, wait a minute. Maybe I should think a little bit differently. And I may never know that happen, but I need to operate in a fashion that could elicit that. So that was my answer to the question.
This one is for Kyle. I think if I had to preface the question like that, he already knows where it's going.
Very ominous.
So, which do you think, given your platform, is more beneficial? Formal debates or conversation, and why?
Definitely conversations, but I'd like to go back to a question you asked earlier about is there anything we shouldn't talk about? I would answer that no. And the reason I say that is because of something that happened actually with Shannon. Probably 5 streams about incels, would you say? A very, very dangerous group, very hateful group. If you've seen those, it's very, very, very heart-wrenching and very dark to go and watch. And the thing with this group is that I got so many messages, Shannon got a lot of messages about how we should not do this. Don't do this. They don't need to be given a platform. Don't talk about this. Now, the last show that we did, we actually had an incel that left that forum. He is in conversation with Shannon and I weekly. He's doing voiceover work, and he's changed his entire life because she was willing to have that conversation with him. He's out of that dark place because she was willing to have that conversation. So I think it's important that as far as the conversation is that you have it, because those are the most important. And you could change somebody's life, because she did. So, bravo for you on that. Discussion, I think, absolutely a discussion, because it allows two people to have a conversation back and forth rather than blocked off time grounds.
Talking past each other usually.
Right, and you don't really get to the heart of the issue. The conversation, you're able to instantly either refute it, rebut it, ask them a question, and you just get a better flow of conversation. Unless it's flat earth, and that just
If it's flat earth, I think the best counter is memes at this point. So this one, I'm going to go ahead and throw this one at Eric. Do you think there is a bad way to communicate? And is there anything that you would possibly advise against doing?
Smoke signals.
Geez, that's tough, man. Do I think there's a bad way to communicate? Well, it depends on if you care about what they think about you, I guess. Ad hominem is terrible. Don't make fun of a person and expect them to change their mind. But then again, part of ad hominem shook me enough to get pissed off enough to be more critical. So I don't know. That's my answer.
That's a honest answer. I cannot fault you for an honest answer. So, I guess I'll go ahead and throw this one at Kyle again. Are you concerned? And I think I know the answer to this because you and I have talked about this before.
No, I'm not concerned.
Okay.
Not yet.
Not yet. Are you concerned that you may or may not be giving harmful ideas more attention than they ought to deserve?
Yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, absolutely. That's a concern. It's one that you have to weigh in. But again, these ideas exist whether you talk about them or not. And with what I think is that the reason that we have such extreme positions is because somewhere along the line we forgot to have that conversation. We forgot to be able to go to someone and disagree and walk away. And so what that does is that alienates this group from this group. They fester, they get angrier, they get more radical, and you have the situations that we have today. You can avoid all that if you go to... How many times have we had... Like Rand the other night. Rand said that Beyonce was an energy vampire.
Yeah. Yeah.
I might have to take a double take on that one.
Yeah. But he did a stream following that hangout where he softened his rhetoric that he had going into it. So he left with a sort of, I mean, it wasn't a complete, he still called us demons. But it was a little bit, it was a little bit less angry. And so to me, that's worth that conversation, because if you don't have it, it just leads to extreme positions.
Can I add one thing? Okay.
Yeah.
So the thing that I want to add to that is that the quickest way to disarm somebody who is looking to see you as an enemy is to meet them with an attempt for understanding and not react to them trying to elicit a negative response from you. So when somebody comes at me in conversations, which they do so many times, my line is essentially, if you're actively harming somebody else or other people, or attempting to harm somebody else or other people, and you show no remorse for it, you're doing it on purpose, I will elevate the discourse less in that situation, because you need to be countered immediately. If you are the victim of horrible ideas, I've been the victim of horrible ideas before, and if I close off these conversations and say to myself, these people aren't worth talking to, then I risk not changing their minds. If I don't try, then they just get to sit there and maybe accumulate more people and exist uncountered, because their ideas are seen as too dangerous to bother, because any attempt at countering them is perceived not as a counter, but as a platform that you're providing for them. So what do you do? What is the appropriate answer? Is the appropriate answer to never, ever, ever address these ideas? Of course not, because if you're not addressing these ideas, then those ideas exist completely unopposed in those people, and they get to pass them on. We need to put up public opposition. The question is how to do it best, not whether we should do it at all.
See what I mean? You can sit with the smart people, and you makes you look good.
Well, since you do consider them smarter, Dan, I guess I'll leave the next question to you. Have you ever had a disagreement with a fellow activist, and how do you deal with that?
Yeah, let's go there. Here's a secret. If you sat every single one of the speakers right now at a table and you ask them all kinds of questions, they're going to disagree at some point, whether publicly or not. Like, it's going to happen. So the question is, like, what are we going to do with those disagreements? Are we going to let them affect us enough to where we can't have conversations anymore, where we can't work together on projects, where we can't speak together at the same buildings? Or are they negligible enough to where we can work with some of those differences and move on? Because it is unrealistic to come into a movement, especially like ours, and have the expectations that we're all going to agree with and are all going to have the same opinions on everything at the same time. It's just not going to happen, especially with people like us who are always going to be questioning things. That's kind of our thing. Like, it's kind of our, our modus operandi, right? I mean, like, it's what we do. And I don't mind having the disagreements so much. I think the problem is when you pick one particular pet issue and you make that your one thing and your sticking point, and you become unreasonable because of this one particular thing. Many Twitters have happened, and like many people on YouTube and all kinds of things have conversations have been sparked because of particular issues. And I'm not even thinking of anybody in particular. I just think it just happens in general. It just happens in general. I'm not the type to go out and attack people on Twitter, and I'm not as snarky as some people on this table. I'll say this much, but it's just like, I don't know, live and let live. You got to pick your battles, right? Like, I consider that, like, this is almost workplace conflicts at this point, right? Like, I see these people all the time, and I talk to them all the time. What do you do when you have a problem with somebody at your work? Do you talk to them directly? Do you go straight to HR? It's the same kind of thing, except we don't have an HR. We just kind of dish it out ourselves. But yeah, I don't mind the disagreements. I think if you have them, work it out with somebody, DM them. See where you can find common ground and go from there. And don't go straight to the public thing and call them out for it, because you could be wrong. Like, they could still be right about the thing, and you may have to have another conversation with somebody to figure that out. So yeah, that's my answer to that.
All right. We do have one last question, and this one I'll go ahead and address to everyone so we can just get it down the road, starting with Shannon.
Very distinct difference. I think some people perceive an attack on their beliefs as a personal attack because it's so entrenched in the identity that they have. So when you attack a belief and they see a belief as an intrinsic part of themselves, they do take it personally. The difference is you will elicit thought. They will go out and try to research to prove you wrong. They will try to show themselves and show you the reason you're wrong about what they believe, and then at least they're looking. They're doing the legwork. They're actually assessing and engaging in critical analysis. When you attack just a person, you're not eliciting anything other than a reaction from that person towards you that's negative. That's all you're doing. You're not getting them to think unless they rage like Eric did and go. But all you're doing is making them feel closed off, further segregating them or entrenching them further in the idea that you think is bad to begin with. And if you think the idea is bad, ask yourself, and that elicits from you something that a bias against a group of people who have those ideas. You need to take a moment and check your biases, because have you ever had a bad idea? Yeah, you probably. Kyle, you started one sex show. But yeah, so you have to ask yourself, have I ever had a bad idea? Yes, you probably have had a bad idea. Have you ever changed your mind? Yes, you probably have changed your mind. Did you change who you are? Probably not. So people have the ability to change their minds. If you attack them and not the idea, that'll stay with them. Their perception of you will completely change, and then you lose the ability to have an effect. If you attack the idea, you embolden them to go and find out whether or not it has efficacy. And that's an important distinction that people often forget.
Speaking of change, let's talk about our friendship. I don't know if I can say it better than Shannon just did. What I would do is take out the word